Would it surprise you if I told you that our longevity is significantly influenced by the negative age-related beliefs that we've held over the years? In today's episode, I'm going to share why it's crucial that we become more aware of these ageist beliefs and comments so that we can consciously reject and challenge them, ensuring that they don't negatively impact our lives. Hi, I'm Gail Jervis, and welcome to Life After 65. As an avid reader and researcher, I've recently made it my mission to explore all the ways that my husband and I can live healthier, happier, and more fulfilling lives as we learn to redefine aging. I started this channel to share what I'm learning with anyone else who has that same goal. Now, when was the first time you think you created images of what it's like to be old? Did you have a grandmother or a grandfather that helped you create your own ideas of what it is to be old? I think my grandkids are very fortunate since they have a grandpa, my husband, who at 72 plays tennis, plays pickleball, coaches two of the grandkids in community basketball. And other days they call him up to go to the driving range, to walk a dog, to throw a football. But what images of old people did you develop if they were more sedentary, more often discussing aches and pains? Or perhaps you don't have memories of grandparents, but that doesn't mean you didn't develop images of older people. In fact, the first day that your parent or teacher read to you the classic fairy tale, Little Red Riding Hood, you began creating images of old people. You began imagining a sad, defenseless, vulnerable, weak, sick old granny lying in bed, and she was going to be eaten by the mean wolf. In today's episode, based on the many ideas in Becca Levy's book, Breaking the Age Code, I will be sharing with you how we can take control over all of those negative age beliefs. Probably the most important strategy is to increase our awareness that we are practicing or absorbing ageist thoughts and comments. So here's a few to get you started. Here are 8 strategies to increase our awareness of ageism. 1, increase your awareness at the times you surrender to ageist thoughts and comments. How do you view people who are older than you? Can you recall how you viewed older people when you were considerably younger? Do mainly negative or positive words come to your mind? In younger years, how often did you mutter under your breath when you were driving? Oh, it's probably an elderly person driving in that vehicle. And yes, here's the facts. Older drivers have fewer accidents than younger drivers. We must continually assess our negative age beliefs. For example, on a regular basis, imagine a person who is 10 years or even 20 years older than you currently are. Now write down 5 words or phrases that how you might describe that person. Are those responses negative or positive? Do you need to change some of your negative beliefs? Try writing down names of 5 people who are older than you and who you admire. Those people can be famous or who just lives down the road from you. What qualities do you admire in these people and would like to strengthen in your life? Number 2, be aware of how people speak to older people. You may be the recipient of what has been coined elder speak. Elder speak occurs when someone starts speaking to you in simplified language or using a sing-song cadence. Oh, how are you? Definitely a louder than normal voice. Or how often have you been called young lady or young man, perhaps by a store's cashier? Or has anyone lately called you dearie or sweetie? Or how often has someone said to you who hasn't seen you for a few years, oh, you haven't aged a day? You may have even found yourself speaking like this yourself. And these comments, some of those comments at least, are intended as compliments or meant to be respectful. But instead, they can be demeaning. They can lower the recipient's feelings of self-worth. Or number 3, be aware how older people around you are speaking and acting. Do some of these people demonstrate more positive models of aging than others? And you spend more time with those people who have positive aging beliefs rather than those who just want to complain about getting old and, oh my gosh, I seem to be getting more and more aches and pains. Or number 4, be aware of how older characters are portrayed in novels, picture books, magazines. In 1986, when Virginia Hamilton, she received an award for her picture book, and she made the comment, literature gives us images with which to think. Well, unfortunately, literature also can give us false images, and one of them are wrong images conveyed about older people. Just think of the many stories you and I have read in school that helped us determine what it's like to be old. A sociologist took a representative sample for the years 1950 to 1959 and 1965 to 1974 by randomly selecting 5 titles for each year. He concluded that based on their roles in these books, children were led to believe that old people are unimportant and that old age was not an enjoyable time of life. Have those beliefs even slipped into our way of thinking? There have been a number of studies analyzing children's picture books and just books to determine what children are learning about older people. Well, sadly, many of the stories don't even include older people, so that their omission actually teaches the importance of us. And when older people are included, they are either unimportant people, or get this, they are villains, or they have all the stereotypical characteristics of old people. A study done in 2010 analyzing children's books was more encouraging since there were more older people, but based on our population, still not very many. And some of our roles were more positive, but the sociologist noted we still have a long ways to go to improve the negative images of old people in children's books. Therefore, if you find yourself reading books to your grandchildren, be aware. Are there any old people in them? And if there are, how are they depicted? Make sure you bring those images to the attention of your grandchild. Ronald Dahl is a popular author for young children, and yet, here is what he wrote in his book, George's Marvelous Medicine. That grisly old grunion of a grandma had pale brown teeth and a small puckered up mouth like a dog's bottom. Well, humorous, but not if we're always at the expense of someone's negative humor. And obviously, besides our awareness of how aging is depicted in children's books, we also need to be aware how an older person is depicted in our own novels. The character wasn't particularly likable, so that perhaps his comment was in keeping with his character. But I cringed when I read in the book, The Fury. It says, "That's the only good thing I can say about getting older. I'm finally calming down." By the way, if you're enjoying this episode, please consider subscribing to this channel. And if you do, please leave a comment below that you have so that I can thank you. And by the way, I'd love to read your comments about your thoughts about how you feel about this aging process, and do you feel like there have been some ageist comments that you have received, or perhaps you have even given without even thinking. So number 5 is be aware of any aging beliefs that you even see on television shows and movies. In the TV show Frasier, Frasier's father, Martin Crane, is actually portrayed as a sophisticated and suave man who is able to make friends with most people, and he loves life, and he loves his dog Eddie. He is frequently portrayed as the smartest and the most adjusted member of the family compared to his 2 well-educated sons. There are positive examples. Another positive example is in Blue Blood. The grandfather and father to the Reagan family, they are portrayed very positively. His son, who's the New York City police commissioner, as well as his 2 sons on the police force, and his daughter, a prosecuting attorney, they all still go to Dad for advice. They still will go to Gramps for advice. Unfortunately, There are many other shows that depict the older person far more negatively. For example, in an episode on Grey's Anatomy, one of the doctors, after making a nearly fatal mistake during an appendectomy, said, "Yeah, maybe I should have gone into geriatrics. No one minds when you kill an old person." Okay, this comment was stated in jest, but the fact that this comment could be used as a joke indicates that elderly people are considered less than, especially when compared to younger patients. You might recall the TV show called Scrubs. In one episode, the main character, JD, is speaking to his mentor, Dr. Cox, about how was his first day on the job. And then he comments, "This isn't really what I expected. I mean, most of my patients are older and sort of checked out mentally." And Dr. Cox replies, "Pumpkin, that's modern medicine. Advances that keep people alive who should have died a long time ago, back when they lost what made them people." Whoa, what? And now that people are becoming more aware of ageism, I doubt if that comment could be currently made in a show, or at least I can only hope that. Rebecca Levy wrote that in 2016, characters aged 60 and older represented just 11% of all speaking characters across the 100 top grossing films, and of those films in which older people actually managed to make it onto the screen, 44% of them included ageist comments. In a 2019 survey of the 30 top grossing films in the United States, United Kingdom, France, and Germany, the Gina Davis Institute, yes, the famous actress, the Gina Davis Institute, she's on a rampage against ageism. Anyways, in this institute, she found that not a single woman over 50 had been cast in a leading role. Now, when you're reading or watching a show, keep a running list of ageist comments or actions, and notice the absence of older characters. Now, I think that, I have watched some shows. You're already thinking of perhaps Jane Fonda or Lily Tomlin. There's a number of older actors that still seem to be showing up on shows and starring in them. Sally Field. But generally, what do you see? Who do you see? Becca Levy warns us that people who watch more television over their lifetimes have more negative age stereotypes. And when members of marginalized groups don't see themselves represented on television or in books or in ads or online or other media, it actually can lead to lower self-worth. Number 6, increase your ageism. Increase your awareness how ageism may be part of birthday celebrations. How often do you see over-the-hill decorations, bouquets of black balloons with tombstones, and even the tablecloths with grim aging warnings printed on them? And of course, listen to the ageist conversations of people teasing the birthday with that kind of birthday. Number 7, pay attention to the commercials you watch or the advertisements you see. Do they send messages of ageism? A commercial for anti-aging skincare products that implies aging is something to be feared and fought against. It's suggesting that wrinkles and other signs of aging, oh my gosh, are undesirable. An advertisement for a retirement community that portrays older adults as frail and dependent reinforces the stereotype that, here's where we end up. Aging inevitably leads to decline and incapacity, but they will be well taken care of. A car commercial featuring a young couple driving a flashy sports car implies that only young people are adventurous and exciting, while older adults are boring and conservative. Fashion advertisement featuring only young, thin models, excluding older adults, reinforces the notion that beauty and style are exclusive to youth. Fortunately, Becca Levy, in her book, Breaking the Age Code, quotes Susan Giannino, who's the chair of Publicis North America, one of the largest advertising companies in the world. and she's in her 70s, and she is one of its oldest and most powerful CEOs, and she is convinced that change is coming. She says, eventually, the sheer numbers of engaged, healthy, happy, active older people who are fighting for a more just world will do the work for us. Number 8, become aware of the hate speech directed against older people. I was shocked when I read in Breaking the Age Code that when the author Levy analyzed all publicly available groups on Facebook that have to do with older people, she found that 74% of these groups vilified older people, 27% infantilized them, and 37%, guess, this is shocking, 37% of them advocated banning them from public activities like driving and shopping. She gives a dreadful example of one British group on Facebook that advocates banning older people from stores on the grounds that they have the smell of weed, or they park badly in the car park, and it just results in a wasted and exceptionally valuable parking spaces for others. Oh. Comments like either age, check them at the door, or implement a voluntary euthanasia program. I'd happily volunteer to top one of them. I mean, those kinds of hate speech are usually acceptable for any other group. As of 2022, in an updated version of Facebook's community standards, older people are now being protected against hate speech, but only if they are tied to another protected group. So that in being against old women, for instance, is banned, but not if it's against old people in general. Number 9, be aware that people in the medical field have many negative aging beliefs. For example, 35% of doctors think it's normal for older people to have high blood pressure. Many fail to gather their sexual histories from their older patients, even though individuals over the age of 65 are the fastest growing age group contracting HIV and AIDS. A high percentage of doctors even assume that it's normal for older people to suffer depression. In a systematic review of studies investigating how ageism impacts older persons' health, in 85% of those studies on healthcare access, health providers discouraged or outright denied older patients access to certain treatments compared to younger patients who were identical in every way except for age. In all 45 countries in this study, ageism worsened health outcomes for older people. The healthcare system actually pays geriatricians less than specialists in many other medical fields, which of course reinforces how the healthcare system regards the value of older patients if they can't pay those doctors just as much money. By the way, if you're enjoying this episode, please consider subscribing to this channel. And if you do, please leave a comment below so that I can thank you. And I'd also just love to read your comments about what are your thoughts on this whole topic of ageism, and have you experienced any of it? So now that we focus on increasing our awareness of negative aging beliefs, what else can we do? Well, we actually need to challenge those beliefs and be part of the changing attitude toward older people in our society. 1, the first thing you must do is be prepared to contradict the negative belief, either that occurs in a conversation with someone or perhaps in a letter. Maybe you can write a letter after you've watched a show or seen an advertisement, or if you read a book. I mean, find the authors usually the author has some sort of Facebook page or Instagram. Bring it to their attention. I don't think these authors are being deliberately ageist. They just are bought up into all of the common societal beliefs. Becca Levy urges us to rebut these negative aging beliefs with a well thought out rebuttal. Get some facts to attack the ageist myth. Number 2, become involved in politics. Write letters to your government when you disagree with their policies to older constituents. Or perhaps you live in a state or province that is actually making some good policies. Write a letter of thanks to encourage them. The premier in my province is currently spending money to upgrade the extended care facilities. And is spending money also to help people find ways to live longer in our own homes. Right? Thank them. 3, contact your local school board. Encourage them to develop some goals for preschool to grade 12 curricula that actually include positive depictions of older people in their courses such as history and social studies. Request that on a professional development day for teachers, they are taught ageism awareness. Encourage teachers to invite older persons from the community to come into their classrooms, taking advantage of their expertise. That might help overcome a very common thing that I've seen in some of our schools here. For the elementary, or particularly the kindergartners I know, and I know of another one who was in elementary, they had finished 100 days of school. And you know what they were asked to do? They were asked to dress like an old person of 100 years old. And they were all walking in the school, borrowing Grandpa's cane, and they're hunched over. No, that may seem cute, but it's just spreading their concept of what it is to be old. Another thing, number 4, challenge ageism in the workplace. Even though the United Nations states that they want ageism to end, their employees, including those that focus on issues of aging, are actually still forced to retire by the age of 65. And I thought that was rather ironic. And I have a very healthy 63-year-old brother-in-law, and he has to retire as a pilot in 2 years because our airlines, well, actually it's not our airlines, the international airlines have an ageist policy for retirement, even though every 6 months they get checkups to see if they are mentally, emotionally, physically healthy enough to fly their planes. And call your local newspaper. Encourage a reporter to examine how companies block older people online so that they can't even apply for any job openings. And would it surprise you to learn that there are companies that pay for online ads for job openings that purposely exclude older people by posting the ads in a way that they cannot see them? I wish I understood that better. I don't exactly know how they do this. That's just what I read, and I trust this author. And would it surprise you how many of these companies you are familiar with? Target, UPS, State Farm, Amazon, Facebook? And yet, ironically, research findings don't indicate that older people are incompetent. There was a Harvard Business School study at a BMW plant in Germany. Now, their findings demonstrated the benefits of retaining older workers. It found, surprise, surprise, that an age-integrated assembly line increased their productivity, reduced absenteeism, and even led to fewer car defects. At the end of the study, when all the workers were interviewed, none of the workers, no matter their age, none of the workers wanted to leave the age-integrated team. Well, that's not just an interesting coincidence. 5, intergenerational contact has seen a steady decline. In 1850, 70% of older Americans lived with their adult children, and 11% lived with a spouse or alone. But gradually, by 1990, only 16% of older individuals lived with their adult children, and 70% lived with a spouse or alone. In 1991, a British child had a 15% chance of living near a person over the age of 65. Today, that has dropped to 5%. No matter, those statistics just reinforce again, no wonder how some of these ageist stereotypes develop. That's all they know from what they've read, what they've seen, what they've heard. And therefore be aware how often you actually engage in intergenerational contact. I mean, if you belong to a church, don't just hang out with only older people. Invite young families over for lunch. Volunteer to work with the youth. This helps not only you, but impacts young people's views of older people. You know, my husband is, 72, I guess, and he coaches these basketball teams of two of his grandchildren. And I suspect he's teaching more than basketball. I mean, to my other grandchildren who he doesn't coach, he still takes them out golfing. He still asks them to go play tennis or throw a football. I suspect that every time they go out and play with Grandpa, he's teaching far more than those sports. These young people are seeing an older man with gray hair running around the basketball court, running around the tennis court, throwing footballs and doing whatever might possibly come up as an activity. He is in. And number 6, check out organizations who advocate for older people. Aging Better in the United Kingdom, to see how older people are beginning to rally together and do whatever it takes to change the way we all think about aging. And take a look at Help Age International. It's devoted to helping older people challenge discrimination and overcome poverty. They state that their mission is to empower older people to lead dignified, active, and healthy lives. Make sure you check their short video on YouTube. I'll leave the link in the comments below. And another organization to check out is Pass It On Network. It's an organization of older persons that now operates in 40 countries. And it's an online platform for disseminating information about aging-related issues, including ageism-based social problems. By the way, I highly recommend you reading the book Breaking the Age Code by Becca Levy. It's a fascinating read. But I thought the following quote from World Health Organization would be a good way to end this episode. After all, since 2021, they have been campaigning against ageism, and they even recognize that it's a serious worldwide concern. And they said in this following statement, people don't recognize the existence of institutional ageism because the rules, its norms and practices of the institution are long-standing, have been ritualized, and are seen as normal. But as we increase our awareness of ageism, you and I can begin to break down ageism so that it will no longer be seen as normal. If you enjoyed this episode, please click on the following link to watch another episode, which also might like to click on the like button so that even more people can hear about how those of us over 65 can live a fulfilling life as we continue to learn how to redefine aging.